Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Office of CAIR-Chicago, the Council on American Islamic Relations in Chicago. We are here this morning to announce the filing of a complaint against the City of Des Plaines on behalf of the American Islamic Center, which is a Bosnian community center and mosque that houses around 160 members in the Chicagoland area. The Imam of this mosque is Imam Senad, Agic, who's here with us today. He is a very well-known Imam in the Chicagoland community who has served more than the Bosnian community. He has extended his services to the entire American Muslim Chicago community. Let me just ask everybody to kind of get into the camera view. And the leader of this community, Imam Senad, and his associates on the board have been looking for an office space or a center or warehouse or something that they can use for their mosque and for their center, which has more than just prayers. It does educational classes, it welcomes interfaith groups, it does press conferences, it does the prayers in Ramadan. And so they've been looking around and they found a space in Des Plaines that very much matched their needs. After applying for the necessary permits to be able to start their center there, they were asked to go through certain loopholes, which we believe they did, and they showed that they were able to build a center in the space pursuant to the expectations of the laws there. However, when there was a vote on whether to grant them the necessary zoning permits, this was denied by the board of Des Plaines Village. We are here today with Mr. Anthony Peraica, who is the lead attorney and founder of Anthony Peraica and Associates, and he is the attorney filing the complaint with CAIR-Chicago as co-counsel. He will be addressing you today as to the particulars of this case. Just a little context, this isn't the first case that has come to our attention in terms of mosques seeking zoning that they're denied on flimsy basis. We recently litigated on behalf of the Rehab Learning Center out in the west suburbs and won the case, being successful in getting them the necessary permits and over $400,000 in damages and fees. This will be the second major case that we'll be co-counseling, and I now invite Mr. Anthony Peraica to address you on the specifics.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Tony Peraica. I'm the attorney for the plaintiff in this particular case, which was filed this morning, American Islamic Center versus the City of Des Plaines, and the 5 aldermen who voted against this particular zoning map amendment. I want to introduce my associate, Jillian Moore, who is with me this morning. She will be working with me on this case and has been instrumental in working it out to date. Ladies and gentlemen, this case is about religious discrimination by the City of Des Plaines against a non-for-profit religious organization that happens to be Muslim in their attempt to obtain a zoning map amendment under the City of Des Plaines zoning ordinance, which is provided for and should have been granted. This violates the United States Constitution. This act of denial of the zoning map amendment by the City of Des Plaines violates the United States Constitution, and it violates the Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act of 2000, which prohibits specifically this type of activity by a unit of government. It is interesting to note, as you will see from reading the complaint, which was filed this morning, that the City of Des Plaines Planning Commission voted 3-0 unanimously to approve the zoning map amendment, as they have done for other non-Muslim religious groups that sought it in the City of Des Plaines. In this particular case, using specious and spurious arguments of traffic flow control and public safety, which are really not supported by the facts, the aldermen of the City of Des Plaines voted 5-3 to deny the recommendation of their own planning commission in approving this zoning map amendment as they did 3-0 unanimously. We believe this was done for discriminatory reasons that are not allowed under the United States Constitution. And we believe that this case stands for a proposition that this kind of behavior by any municipality, whether it's DuPage, as it was in the previous cases, or in this case Cook County, City of Des Plaines, is not going to be tolerated and allowed, whether they're Christian, Muslim, or of any other faith or denomination. So we believe that this is a very important case that stands for a very important principle that is to be protected under our Constitution. And we are privileged that we were allowed by the board members to represent them in this case. As was stated a moment ago, this is not the first time that this has occurred in the greater Chicagoland area, and I would like to introduce Kevin Ahmed, Litigation Director for CAIR, to tell you about a couple of other cases that have dealt with this kind of issues, all of which in fact were decided in favor of the plaintiffs, the religious institutions, and then we can open it up to questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Vodak, V as in Victor, O-D-A-K, Litigation Director at CAIR-Chicago. We at CAIR-Chicago have seen a continuing trend of Muslim institutions being faced with problematic zoning denials for their new centers. As indicated, we represented the Irshad Learning Center in a lawsuit that was litigated for approximately 3 years to obtain a permit to use purchased property for their activities. Based on that litigation, a federal judge decided that their religious rights were severely violated when DuPage County made arbitrary and capricious reasons for denying the permit. The Irshad situation dealt with very similar instances of objections such as parking, noise, traffic, that American Islamic Center is facing in this case. And as the federal courts have decided on a continuing basis based on RLUIPA, this type of rationale substantially burdens religious activity. There is a devastating blow that is taken by these religious institutions in these cases. As AIC has done, there's years of searching for appropriate locations, finding that location, preparing expert analysis of that location, and meeting all of the requirements of zoning, only to be faced with a blanket denial based on irrational reasons. And we see that it's a devastating blow because you have members who have anticipations of establishing a new center for the many members of their community who are now faced with a ridiculous reason. And AIC needs to be commended for standing up for these types of violations. And at CAIR-Chicago, we are happy to join in this lawsuit. At this point, I think we're going to open up to questions.
I would like to just briefly introduce Imam Senad. If you would just like to add a couple of words regarding the American Islamic Center and their feelings about the denial of the zoning map amendment application.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. We are not happy that we have to file this lawsuit. We were hoping that the city council of Des Plaines would understand our needs, religious needs, especially after most of our members have been expelled from their native country of Bosnia during the war from 92 to 95. They have been brutally expelled, and each one of the members of American Islamic Center lost 1 month. And 160 families wanted to rebuild one lost mosque here in the United States. And I can't tell you enough how much they are disappointed, how much they are upset, and how much they feel humiliated by this stubborn decision of the city council of Des Plaines. Our name is American Islamic Center, and through the name we want to show that our intention is to integrate with the wider American community. and our integration is our goal. Members of American Islamic Center came to the United States as refugees with refugee status, and they have been going to other mosques for the last 20 years, and finally we made a decision that we want to open the center where most of our members live. For your information, more Muslims live in this place than in any other northwest suburb of Chicago. That was our reason, one of the reasons why we have selected this place. We believe in the legal system of this country, and we believe that we will very soon see our rights fulfilled, met, and our needs met, so that our youth can have a place where to meet, where also our children can learn in weekend school about their background, about their religion. And also we have a women's group which is very active. We have also developed recently very strong relations with non-Muslim religious communities, and to have very active interfaith program. So for all of this, also radio program we have, for all of this we are in a very big need of having this center.
This nation being founded essentially by Puritans who were escaping religious persecution in Europe and coming to the shores of this land in order to find liberty, to be able to worship freely. That today in 2013, going into 2014, we're still faced with the same challenges. As Imam Senad mentioned, this very much mirrors, this community very much mirrors the founding community of America, escaping religious persecution. That was one of the worst genocides to occur since World War II, if not the worst, in Europe. Coming to this nation to find freedom and religious liberty and seeking to build this mosque. And again, for you to know, there is a mosque in Des Plaines, but Des Plaines being the most populous in terms of Muslims in the northwest suburbs, one is not enough. And the Bosnian community with its very specific cultural identity, this center is more than just a prayer center. It is a cultural center to preserve that identity and to further nurture it amongst the young of that community. And they're very much entitled to have a space to do that. And it's very difficult to find real estate property that can accommodate such a request. And when they finally found it, and it was in the right place, the right time, with the right recommendations from the zoning committee, the board decided against it for very dubious reasons. And that's why we're here today.
So right now you just have the one center, so that's where your offices are, and the one center in Des Plaines that you already have. Okay, so then my question is, where are your offices right now, and the ones that you were hoping to move to this new center, number one? And number two, what is the impact then on the community? Does that mean that they're scattered? Does that mean that they end up crowding in one center in Des Plaines? What's the impact on the community?
Okay. In the last 2 years, we have been renting the facilities of the ISNS, the Islamic Center in Rolling Meadows. So we get together in the premises of the Islamic Center in Rolling Meadows. We have a weekend school taking place there. And also some of our activities we do in the newly opened Turkish Center in Mount Prospect. Most of our, as I have indicated, most of our members live in Des Plaines and around Des Plaines. That's one of the reasons why we are interested in having this building or center in Des Plaines. It's centrally located and very conveniently located for most of our members.
Did you purchase this property where you want to put this, or what's the arrangement?
We have signed a contract, sale contract with the seller. With the
Did you have a-
condition,
but-
with the
okay.
condition, if the zoning is approved, then the contract will.
If I could-
So it hasn't closed yet, it's contingent on this.
The building, office building in Des Plaines at 1645 Birchwood Avenue was an old, first of all, it hasn't been occupied for 2 years, so it's been vacant for 2 years. It was formerly occupied by Founders Insurance Company as their administrative claim processing center here in the Midwest. It is in a industrial zoning, kind of industrial park. The contract was signed a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and was continued from time to time pending the approval of the zoning, which we expected to have done at the last board meeting on August 5th, 2013. Instead, the City Council of Des Plaines voted, as I said, 5-3 to deny the recommendation, to reject the recommendation of their own planning committee, unanimous recommendation. So the seller is willing to sell, but recently we were served with a notice that they don't want to continue to extend this contract, and that's why we have to file the case, and hopefully we can get a quick resolution here based on previous cases in DuPage, and get the seller re-engaged because they have not sold the property. It continues to be vacant. The seller, Founders Insurance, in fact, has indicated through their attorneys that if this deal does not go through, that in order to reduce their $100,000 per year real estate tax liability, that they are prepared to raise the building and make it a parking lot because they can't afford to pay real estate taxes for a vacant property.
So in addition, if this drags out, they're in danger of losing the property that they spent so much time on.
That's correct. That's correct. That would be part of the damages that we will address with Judge Kennelly, who has been assigned this case in federal court.
And did the local alderman, how did he vote, he or she?
Voted against it.
Voted against.
Any other questions, comments?
What indication do you have that the traffic arguments, the public safety arguments, the loss of $100,000 of annual tax revenue, what indication do you have that those arguments are spurious and that they don't have any merit?
Because there were not a basis for refusal in other cases where there was even more of a traffic issue and more of a loss of revenue to the municipality involved. Addressing the traffic flow, this would only be a factor on Friday during the 1-hour prayer service once a week. And we have had a professional company that does business with Des Plaines to conduct a traffic study on site. And they have determined in their report, which is a couple of 100 pages, which was part of the reason that the Planning Commission of Des Plaines approved unanimously the zoning map amendment application, that this would not present a problem at all in terms of traffic or parking or anything else. The building as it stands has about 115 parking spaces. There are only about 115 or 20 members who would come, multiple individuals to a car, so there would be hardly any off-site parking onto the street. And even if there was, the traffic is minimal in this industrial park, and there's really no danger to anybody. As far as the issue of the revenue loss, which was raised by some of the aldermen as a basis for denial, this particular office building that AIC had under contract and wanted to purchase if the zoning map amendment was granted, would be a multifunctional use facility. So in addition to the mosque or prayer area, which is only about perhaps 50% of it, there will be a travel agency that would provide services for a fee and pay taxes. There will be a restaurant on site. There's a daycare, school on site. So there will be a portion of the building that will be used for income-producing reasons and would generate revenue for the municipality. So that was really not the reason. And we felt strongly, in fact, that all those reasons raised were dealt with in the exhibits to the application and were ruled on favorably by the Planning Commission that considered all of these issues. So the reasons were really not valid. They were not based on sound reasoning and logic or facts.
And you said there are other religious organizations that Des Plaines has approved in recent years?
Yes.
Which are?
Kevin, what was the other one?
Yeah, it was a church, we can't recall the name of it.
I can get that to you.
Religious Academy.
There was a restaurant actually which was turned into the church.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a restaurant which was a commercial use that was turned into a Catholic religious education center. And it had other, this was a non-for-profit agency, so there was a loss of real estate tax revenue as well involved. And by the way, the loss of tax revenue, if you look at a $100,000 bill that Founders Insurance pays, is only about 13% of that goes to the town of, or city of Des Plaines. The rest is the school districts and various other governmental units that levy this property. So it's a small amount of money, relatively speaking, that would have been made up with people moving who are members or will be members of AIC moving into the city of Des Plaines and who would bring additional dollars that they would spend there to both purchasing real estate, single-family homes, going to the restaurants, engaging in activities with the local businesses as any person would.
Let me actually add that our experience in Illinois, in the Chicagoland area specifically, has been that as mosques are erected and as communities patronize these mosques, that actually always increases the property value in the area. It betters the economic flow of the area, and the case in point is Bridgeview, where the mosque there has really revitalized the area with a lot of business, a lot of restaurants, a lot of income for the city of Bridgeview. And we expect this to be mimicked in this case as well. And then as far as the tax issue is concerned, if you recall, as was mentioned, the current owners may indeed raise the current property. And so it is quite possible that the mosque center with its other facilities would end up paying more taxes to the city than just a parking lot.
You know how long the other mosque has been in Des Plaines?
You're talking about the one on Potter Avenue?
I think so. I think somebody mentioned there was one.
Yeah, it's been there, I think, about 10 or 15 years, as I recall, perhaps even longer, 20 years. And that is a mosque that serves primarily the population of people that practice Islam along Devon Avenue, and it's a Ghani, Pakistani type of community. I've been there during my campaign travels many times, and I think some of that in terms of traffic flow may have been used as a reason for this particular denial, although they could not be different. That was in a residential area, this is in a manufacturing industrial area. It's surrounded by natural barriers all around. It will not be presenting nearly or at all the kind of problems that have been experienced with traffic, for example, there, because the professional traffic study that was conducted indicated this particular industrial Part 2 residential or mixed use that will be consistent with the AIC zoning map amendment application. So the city of Des Plaines' own master plan, zoning master plan, provides for exactly the type of use that AIC wanted to get the zoning map amendment approved for at this particular location. Was consistent with the city's plan.
Can we get the full name and spelling of the Imam, please?
Senad Agic, S-E-N-A-D-A-G-I-C.
So again, this is not a case that is on its own. We've seen many cases like this, not just in Illinois, but around the United States in recent years. And they've always followed the same pattern of a denial that is not based on any good reason provided by those who denied it, almost always contrary to the recommendations given by their own zoning committees. And unfortunately, from our perspective as CAIR-Chicago, this falls in the context of the wave of Islamophobia that we are seeing, where there is this sort of knee-jerk reaction to something Islamic or Muslim We don't see the same kind of denials to churches. Indeed, many of these towns have multiple churches serving communities as they should. But when it comes to mosques, there always seems to be this first reaction to deny, and then unfortunately for us to have to go to litigation in order to overcome whatever discriminatory behavior we're seeing. So with that, we conclude our press conference. You may speak with people individually if you like. Thank you very much for coming.